The Venezuelan government denounced the usurpation of national assets by opposition figures in collusion with the Colombian administration and other foreign accomplices. The 21st meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization was held on Friday in Tajikistan. A delegation of West African leaders will meet Guinea's Junta to ensure a return to the civilian rule in the African nation. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, this is from the South. I am Ray Gomez. We begin with the news. The president of Venezuela's National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, denounced the usurpation of national assets by opposition figures in collusion with the president of Colombia, Ivan Duque, and other foreign accomplices. Rodriguez took to Twitter to denounce the latest violations to Venezuela's legitimate rights over its resources, referring to the usurpation of a monomerous Pequiven oil refinery in Colombian territory by the self-proclaimed interim government of the opposition former Deputy Juan Guaido and other opposition groups. According to the communique, these actions violate one of the main points of the Memorandum of Understanding signed in Mexico on August 13th. Jorge Rodriguez stressed that the willingness of the Bolivarian government to achieve a neutral and fruitful dialogue with the opposition sectors to find common solutions to the economic situation in the country, but also its tenacity defending Venezuela's resources and sovereignty. We stay in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro met with the director of the United Nations World Food Program, David Beasley, for cooperation with this organization. Maduro took to Twitter to express his commitment with the United Nations agency and to confirm an agreement signing. It is expected that this alliance will help to implement assistance programs for children in early education and to create strategies to guarantee food security. The World Food Program seeks the efforts to end the problem of famine at the global level, and Venezuela faces several issues in this field due to the U.S. sanctions. President of Latin America and the Caribbean arrived in Mexico to participate in the 6th CELAC Summit, which will take place this Saturday. The President of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, arrived Thursday morning to participate as special guest in the commemorative activities for the 211th anniversary of the Cry of Independence. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Haiti, Claude Joseph, the President of Uruguay, Luis Lacalle Pou, and the Paraguayan mandatory, Mario Abdo Benitez, have also arrived in the Mexican capital. 17 heads of state and government are called to participate in the next CELAC Summit, in addition to hosting President López Obrador, 2 vice presidents, 12 foreign ministers, and other officials. On the agenda, there are topics such as strengthening cooperation and how to make the Organization of American States, the OAS, become a real representative of its member states and not an entity that serves imperialist interests in the region as it has been acting so far. The Community of Latin American and Caribbean States is an intergovernmental mechanism for dialogue and political agreement. It was created in December 2011 and includes the 33 countries of the area except the United States and Canada. The Progressive Liberal Party won the general elections held in Bahamas on Thursday, ushering in new Prime Minister Philip Davis. Over 194,000 people were registered to cast their ballots to elect the 39 members of the House of Assembly. Outgoing Prime Minister Dr. Herbert Dennis called the early election in August, which was not constitutionally due to until May 2022. The 2 main contenders were Menaces for National Movement and the Progressive Liberal Party led by Philip Davis. Polls had the 2 neck and neck in what was expected to be the tightest election in years. As the results came in showing a win for the PLP, Menace called his rival to concede defeat, while thanking Bahamians for their support over the past 4 years in office. The elections were held as the Bahamas economy struggles to recover from its deepest crash since at least 1971. Tensions are mounting 3 days ahead of Canada's legislative elections as Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called on citizens to vote strategically to block a Conservative surge in which he faces a potential defeat at the hands of Tory leader Aaron O'Toole.
These are values that go against what the Conservative Party is proposing for families, for child care, for a healthcare system. I think that Quebecers know that there is an extremely important choice, as do all Canadians. Do we go back in the direction of Mr. Harper, where Mr. O'Toole sat in that government, was a minister in Mr. Harper's cabinet, or do we continue to move forward? For me, the answer is clear.
And to those Republican attorneys general warned the White House of impending legal action if a proposed coronavirus vaccine requirement for as many as 100 million Americans goes into effect. The prosecutors, led by Attorney General Alan Wilson of South Carolina, sent a letter to the head of state saying if his administration does not alter its course, they will seek every available legal option to hold him accountable and uphold the rule of law. The letter is the latest Republican Party opposition to sweeping new federal vaccine requirements for private sector employees, healthcare workers, and federal contractors announced by Biden earlier this month. The requirement to be enacted through a rule from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration is part of an all-out effort to curb the surging COVID-19 Delta variant. Typhoon Chantil left buildings, streets, and farmland flooded on Friday as it passed by the South Korean island of Jeju, heading towards Japan. Chantil, the 14th Pacific typhoon of the season, reached its closest point to the island early in the morning, about 60 kilometers from the city of Seongwipo, as it passed over the Korean Strait towards the Japanese island of Kyushu, where it is expected to make landfall in the next hours. The Korean Meteorological Administration said the typhoon brought drenching rain and high winds, flooding low-lying neighborhoods, striking trees, and street light and grounding flights. In some southwestern cities, 196 residents were temporarily evacuated for fear of landslides, and around 130 people could not return to their homes. We'll be right back after this very short break. Welcome back. The 21st meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization was held on Friday in the Tajik capital of Station B. The SCO was founded in Shanghai in 2001. It is a permanent intergovernmental political, economic, and security organization. So far, the organization has 8 full members, namely China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Its primary mission is building mutual trust and boosting collective security. This year's meeting put forward the proposal to include Egypt, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia as dialogue partners. During the summit, the members addressed SCO's past success in security and development of the region, as well as the Afghan issue. Russian President Vladimir Putin called on the Taliban to keep its word to normalize life for Afghans and prevent violence spilling over into neighboring countries.
It seems that, first of all, it is important for us to use the potential of the organization in order to provide all possible assistance to the start of an inclusive inter-Afghan peace process, and at the same time to do everything to block the threats of terrorism, drug trafficking, and religious extremism emanating from this country. Today, the Taliban control practically the entire territory of Afghanistan, and the new Afghan authorities should be encouraged to fulfill their own promises to establish peace, normalize public life, and ensure security for all.
Members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization endorsed Iran's future membership of the bloc.
Russia supports the decision submitted for approval by the Council of Heads of State of the SCO to begin the procedure for admitting the Islamic Republic of Iran to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We have always advocated the full-fledged participation of Iran in the work of our organization, proceeding from the fact that this country plays an important role in the Eurasian region and has been fruitful cooperating with the SCO for a long time. Iran's accession will undoubtedly contribute to further enhancing the international authority of the organization.
Residents of the Russian Far Eastern Chukotka and Kamchatka regions have begun voting in a 3-day parliamentary election in the state Duma, the elected lower house of parliament. The head of the Central Election Commission said voters will be able to cast ballots through to Sunday. With 14 parties fielding candidates for half of the Duma's 450 seats that are chosen by party list, the election shows to be genuinely competitive. President Vladimir Putin urged the citizens to vote, saying the election of a new legislature is undoubtedly the most important event in the life of the Russian society. These are the first Duma elections since significant constitutional reforms last year.
I am for stability in the country. The proportion of parties' mandates in parliament is another question. The most important thing is that the country is stable and developing. The majority would vote for United Russia's party, but competition is needed and there will be competition. There's competition already. Let's see. These elections will show the result of United Russia's work for the past years. Let's see at the result these elections will indicate.
And after 7 months since the rapper Pablo Hasél was arrested, his imprisonment remained a violation of freedom of expression in Spain. Pablo Rivadulla, known as Pablo Hasél, is a Catalan rapper born in Lleida, a region of Catalonia, arrested on February 16, 2021. Hasél has been highly criticized over his song's lyrics, saying he glorifies terrorism and slanders the crown and state institution of the Iberian nation. Since the arrest, massive protests took place in different cities where people demonstrated in favor of freedom of expression and against the Spanish monarchy. After over 200 artists, including the filmmaker Pedro Almodóvar, signed a petition defending the rapper, the government announced his intention of reforming the criminal code to eliminate prison terms for crimes involving freedom of expression. Cambodia on Friday began inoculating children as young as 6 against coronavirus. Today, the Southeast Asian country was vaccinated over 98% of the adult population with at least one dose. The latest phase of the drive began with the grandchildren of Prime Minister Hun Sen and other officials receiving a Sinovac shot in front of reporters in Phnom Penh. Cambodia plans to give children aged 6 to 12 2 shots of the Chinese-made vaccine, with the third booster dose later. A global study of the effectiveness of the Sinovac shot on youngsters aged between 6 months and 17 years was launched last week. The research will involve 14,000 children and teenagers in South Africa, Chile, Kenya, Malaysia, and the Philippines.
We should not consider this as a race over vaccines, but Cambodia has its duty to protect the lives of its people and has a duty to reopen the economy, including education. As for the vaccine tourism program, I gave an idea to the government cabinet and the tourism ministry for consideration to fully allow vaccinated people to visit Cambodia. When tourists arrive, they will have to stay in quarantine for 7 days, but it is not 7 days in a room. During these 7 days, tourists can go around the city that they land in.
The United Nations Children's Fund said the world is facing an education crisis due to the COVID pandemic that has left nearly 77 million children shut out of the classroom for the past 18 months. For UNICEF, the right to go to school is central to every child's development, safety, and well-being. Yet in too many countries, classrooms remain closed while social gatherings continue to take place in restaurants, salons, and gyms. New numbers from UNESCO show that the schools are now fully opened in 117 countries, with 539 million students back in class, ranging from primary to secondary levels. In all countries that had prolonged full school closures, education was provided through a combination of online classes, printed modules, as well as tuition through TV and radio networks. Tunisia and Libya opened their shared border on Friday, 2 months after it was closed, as Tunisia's coronavirus caseload soared. Libya shut its land border and suspended flights between the two countries on July 8. With Tunisia's caseload rapidly dropping, officials on both sides agreed to reopen the frontier after Libyan Transitional Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dbeibeh met Tunisian President Kais Saied in Tunis on September 9th. The Ras Adir border post in the main crossing between Libya and Tunisia, and both sides rely heavily on cross-border trade. Officials agreed on a straightened health protocol subject to revision in light of developments in the health situation in the two countries. Travelers, including children, are required to be fully vaccinated against COVID and must produce a negative PCR test or face a hotel quarantine. We have more stories coming up after this financial break. Welcome back. A delegation of West African leaders is expected to meet Guinea's Junta a day after regional bloc Ecowas urged a rapid election following a coup in the country. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara was the first to arrive at the Conakry airport, where he was greeted by Lieutenant Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, leader of the coup that ousted former Guinean President Alpha Condé. On Thursday meeting, leaders from the West Africa bloc imposed a travel ban on junta members and froze their financial assets. Co-leader Lieutenant Colonel Doumbouya has not yet responded to the call for elections from the Economic Community of West African States. This week, he held meetings over several days with political and civil society figures in talks intended to pave a return to civilian rule. On Friday, South Africa's top court dismissed a bid by former President Jacob Zuma to overturn his 15-month jail sentence. Zuma faces charges of contempt of court after and recently he ignored instructions to participate in a corruption inquiry. Justice Sisi Kampipi said the majority ruling found Zuma did not meet the requirements of a decision. The former president was found guilty by the Constitutional Court after he refused to appear at the State Capture Commission. On July 8, he started serving his 15-month sentence. In August, he was taken to hospital. Zuma argued that the order was granted in his absence and without him being granted a trial. However, the court found that Zuma did not meet the statutory requirements, so his conviction remains in peace. The escalation of clashes between Houthi fighters and pro-government troops continues in the central Yemen province of Al-Baida. Military officials confirmed the death of a colonel and 19 other loyalists. The Houthis rarely report casualty numbers, but other military sources confirmed the loss of 30 combatants in battlefield clashes and airstrikes. The anti-government forces have made advances in Al-Baida province in recent weeks, as they also fight for control of the strategic city of Marib in the north. In February, the Houthis escalated their efforts to seize Marib, the government's last hold in the north, and the fight has killed hundreds of both sides. Control of the oil-rich province would strengthen the Houthis' bargaining position in peace talks. The battle for Marib has also raised fears of a humanitarian catastrophe, as many Yemenis have fled to the area to escape fighting in other parts of the country. The Boko Haram group attacked a military convoy in Nigeria's northeastern Borno state, killing 12 soldiers and seizing 3 trucks. According to local reports, the attack took place as the convoy was traveling on a highway between Borno's capital, Maiduguri, and the garrison town of Monguno. The group has been carrying out violent attacks on civilians in communities and military bases in the region since July 2009. According to the United Nations report, around 36,000 people have died since the group launched its terror campaign, displacing 2 million in Nigeria. North Korea released a video of its new system to launch missiles from trains, offering a multitude of camera angles that show its capabilities. The video of the test carried out on Wednesday of 2 short-range ballistic missiles displayed 4 different angles of one of the launches, including one from overhead, followed by shots of how the missile was set into position on the train. It was North Korea's first test of ballistic missiles since March, and followed what Pyongyang said was a test of a new long-range cruise missiles over the weekend. The footage of the missile launch follows a military parade broadcast last Friday. And 3 Chinese astronauts, the first sent to orbit for space station construction, will readjust to gravity and live on Earth after having completed their 3-month mission and returned to Earth safely on Friday. According to the China Manned Space Agency, the return capsule of the Shenzhou-12 spaceship touched down at the Dunfan London site in North China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region. The 3 astronauts lived and worked in the space station for 90 days, the longest stay in space by Chinese astronauts. Experts at the China Astronaut Research and Training Center stated that such a long stay in space can be a testing challenge for the astronauts' physiological functions, cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, and balance system. After returning to Earth, the 3 astronauts will undergo recovery training for half a year.
Thank you for all your concern and blessings. I will never forget this birthday. The universe is so vast, so beautiful and fascinating. I was fortunate and happy to have the chance to fly up into the sky again and take a spacewalk on our own space station. It feels great to be back, and it was amazing to travel into space. At this moment, I miss my families and comrades. I would like to say to my parents back in my hometown in Hunan province, Dad and Mom, I'm back, safe and sound, and very well.
We've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Ray Gomez. I thank you for watching.